poor mechanic pays bus fare for a stranger, not knowing he is millionaire. 3 years ago, his mother had destroyed this same woman's life, stolen her future, and left her with nothing but a restraining order. Have you ever wondered what happens when the person you've wronged becomes the one person who could save you? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. The young billionaire stepped onto the crowded city bus wearing thrift store clothes, his Ferrari keys hidden in his pocket as he prepared to lie about being broke. When the beautiful woman in the emerald dress handed him her last $2.75 with a smile that could light up Manhattan, Alexander Sterling had no idea he was accepting charity from his family's greatest enemy. 3 years ago, his mother had destroyed this same woman's life, stolen her future, and left her with nothing but a restraining order. And now she was about to discover exactly who had been fixing the luxury cars at their family garage. Have you ever wondered what happens when the person you've wronged becomes the one person who could save you? This story will make you question everything you thought you knew about justice and revenge. Hit that like button if you're ready for a tale of deception that will keep you guessing until the very last moment. Let me take you back to where this deadly game of cat and mouse began. Alexander Sterling owned everything money could buy, yet felt like he possessed nothing at all. At 24, he commanded boardrooms filled with men twice his age, signed contracts worth millions with a single stroke, and lived in a Manhattan penthouse that overlooked half the city. His closet held Italian suits worth more than most people's annual salaries. His garage housed cars that appeared in automotive magazines. His bank account contained enough zeros to fund small countries. But every morning, Alexander woke up suffocating. "The Henderson deal requires your signature," his assistant announced, sliding another stack of documents across his mahogany desk. "Your mother expects the acquisition to be completed by Friday." Alexander stared at the papers without reading them. Sterling Automotive Industries had built its empire by acquiring smaller companies, gutting their operations, and selling the pieces for profit. Thousands of jobs disappeared with each signature. Entire communities crumbled when Sterling moved operations overseas. His mother, Victoria Sterling, called it strategic business optimization. Alexander called it legalized destruction. "Sir," his assistant shifted uncomfortably. "The board meeting starts in 10 minutes. The conference room buzzed with the usual suspects, gray-haired executives discussing quarterly projections and market dominance. Victoria Sterling commanded the head of the table, her silver hair pulled into a severe bun, her ice blue eyes calculating every angle. "Our automotive division exceeded expectations again," she announced. "The mystery mechanic servicing our high-end clients has generated unprecedented customer satisfaction ratings. Whoever this person is, they're worth their weight in gold." Alexander barely listened. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, he watched ordinary people hurrying along the sidewalks below, people with real problems, real struggles, real lives. They caught buses and subway trains, worried about rent payments and grocery bills, experienced genuine human connections. Everything Alexander desperately wanted but couldn't buy. That evening, he made a decision that would change everything. He walked into his bedroom, past the designer clothes and luxury accessories, and opened a small drawer hidden behind his jewelry collection. Inside lay documents he'd secretly prepared months ago, a fake identity, community college enrollment papers, and a new name, Alex Cooper. Tomorrow, he will disappear into the world of ordinary people. Tomorrow, he would learn what life felt like when money couldn't solve every problem. Tomorrow, he would discover that some encounters were worth more than all the gold in his family's vaults. He had no idea he was about to meet his family's greatest victim. Zara Johnson's hands could rebuild any engine ever manufactured, but they couldn't rebuild the life that had been stolen from her. At 19, she possessed a genius-level understanding of mechanical systems that would have impressed MIT professors if she'd ever gotten the chance to meet them. Instead, she spent her nights in underground garages, fixing luxury vehicles for cash payments that kept her and her 3-year-old daughter fed. The garage smelled of motor oil and determination. Zara lay beneath a gleaming Porsche, her emerald jumpsuit stained with grease, her tools arranged with surgical precision. Above her, the engine's heartbeat told stories only she could understand. "Timing belt's been neglected for months," she muttered, adjusting her position. "Owner probably spends more on lunch than this repair costs." Her phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Rodriguez, her daughter's babysitter. Harmony asking when Mama comes home. She drew a picture. Zara's chest tightened. 3 jobs meant missing bedtime stories, morning hugs, and lazy Sunday afternoons. But 3 jobs also meant rent payments, daycare costs, and the hope that someday Harmony would have opportunities her mother had lost. The Porsche's engine purr told her the work was complete. Another satisfied customer who would never know their mystery mechanic was a teenage mother who should have been finishing her engineering degree at one of the world's most prestigious universities. Instead, she was here, invisible, surviving. Zara packed her tools with practiced efficiency. Each wrench, socket, and screwdriver had been purchased with money scraped together from multiple jobs. Waitressing at the diner, stocking shelves at the grocery store, and these secret automotive repairs that paid better than anything else. Her reputation spread through whispered recommendations. Find a girl in the emerald jumpsuit, customers told their friends. She's magic with engines. Magic. If only they knew the real story. If only they knew that 3 years ago, she'd been married into one of America's wealthiest families. If only they knew that same family had crushed her dreams, stolen her future, and left her with nothing but a restraining order and a broken heart. If only they knew she'd spent every day since then planning her revenge. Zara locked the garage and walked toward the bus stop, counting the crumpled bills in her pocket. $43. Enough for groceries, bus fare, and maybe a small toy for Harmony. She had no idea that tomorrow's bus ride would put her face to face with the enemy she'd been preparing to destroy. The Route 47 bus wheezed to a stop as evening rain painted streaks across its windows. Alexander climbed aboard wearing his carefully selected costume. Faded jeans, a wrinkled t-shirt, and sneakers with genuine scuff marks he'd created by dragging them across concrete. His Oscar-worthy performance began the moment he approached the fare box. Excuse me, he said, patting his empty pockets with theatrical confusion. "I think I left my wallet at school. Could I possibly?" The bus driver's expression suggested he'd heard this story 1,000 times. "No fare, no ride, kid. Step off." Behind Alexander, passengers grumbled about delays. Someone muttered about freeloading college students. His face burned with embarrassment that, for once, wasn't manufactured. Then a voice cut through the tension like music. "Hold on." Alexander turned to see the most beautiful woman he'd ever encountered. She couldn't have been much older than him, with radiant dark skin and eyes that held depths he wanted to explore. Her emerald dress, clearly handmade but stunning, accentuated curves that made his mouth go dry. More striking than her beauty was her presence. While everyone else seemed worn down by their day, she radiated strength and warmth. She counted coins from a small purse, her fingers graceful despite obvious calluses. $2.75, she told the driver, handing over the exact fare. "For my friend here." "Ma'am, you don't have to," Alexander started. "We all need help sometimes," she said, settling into a seat near the back. Her smile could have powered the entire bus. "Besides, you look like someone who'd return the favor someday." Alexander took the seat across from her, his rehearsed broke student persona crumbling under her genuine kindness. He'd expected judgment, suspicion, maybe pity. Instead, she offered simple human decency without asking for anything in return. "I'm Alex," he said, the lie feeling bitter on his tongue. "Zara." Her name rolled off her lips like poetry. "You go to community college?" "Yeah, just started. Still figuring everything out." "What's your major?" Alexander panicked. He'd prepared fake personal details, but hadn't expected actual conversation. "Business, I guess. Maybe economics." Zara's laugh was warm honey. "You guess? Most people have stronger opinions about their future." "What about you? You seem like someone who knows exactly where they're headed." Something flickered across her features. Pain, determination, secrets he couldn't read. Let's just say I'm working on it. The bus approached Alexander's stop. He stood reluctantly, wishing the ride could last forever. "Thank you," he said, "for the fare and for believing I'd pay it forward." "I have good instincts about people," Zara replied. Alexander walked away, thinking about her smile, her kindness, her mysterious sadness. He had no idea she'd just helped her greatest enemy board the bus to his destruction. The Sterling Automotive headquarters gleamed like a monument to corporate power, but Alexander couldn't focus on anything except emerald eyes and genuine kindness. He'd returned to his penthouse the night before, showered off his ordinary person disguise, and tried to slip back into his billionaire routine. But Zara's face haunted every polished surface, every expensive piece of art, every symbol of the wealth that suddenly felt meaningless. "The quarterly reports are ready for your review," his assistant announced, placing leather-bound folders on his desk. Alexander flipped through pages of profit margins and acquisition targets without processing a single number. His mind kept returning to 275, the exact amount a struggling young woman had sacrificed for a stranger. Voices from the corridor caught his attention. "Mr. Mechanic outdid herself again," someone was saying. "Mrs. Patterson's Bentley purrs like it just rolled off the factory floor." "Whoever she is, she's worth her weight in platinum," another voice replied. 3 different customers specifically requested her work this week. Alexander paused. The Sterling garage employed dozens of certified mechanics, all highly trained and well-paid. What made this mystery worker so special? "She only works nights," the first voice continued. "Never during regular hours. Security footage shows her arriving after closing, gone before morning. Management tried to meet her, but she's like a ghost. Long as she keeps customers happy, who cares about her schedule?" Alexander found himself walking toward the executive garage, curiosity overriding his usual indifference to operational details. The Sterling facility housed vehicles worth millions. Classic cars, custom builds, and luxury models that wealthy clients trusted only to the most skilled hands. The night manager, Jenkins, looked surprised to see a Sterling family member in his domain. "Mr. Alexander, is there something you need? Tell me about this mystery mechanic everyone's discussing." Jenkins' weathered face lit up. "Best worker I've seen in 30 years. Shows up around 9 p.m., works until dawn, never leaves a single tool out of place. Her repairs are flawless, better than flawless. She improves things that weren't even broken. Have you seen her?" "Briefly. Young woman, early 20s maybe, wears this bright green jumpsuit that she's modified somehow. Makes it look almost formal." Jenkins chuckled. "Smart as a whip too. Left detailed notes about potential issues she spotted during her work. Saved our customers thousands in future repairs." Alexander's pulse quickened. Green jumpsuit, young woman, exceptional skills hidden behind mysterious circumstances. Any idea why she works such unusual hours? "My guess, she's got other obligations during the day. Maybe school, maybe another job. Point is, she's reliable and talented. That's rare these days." Alexander thanked Jenkins and returned to his office, but concentration remained impossible. 2 mysteries consumed his thoughts. The generous woman from the bus who'd restored his faith in human kindness, and the skilled mechanic whose dedication impressed even veteran automotive professionals. He had no idea both mysteries shared the same beautiful face, the same determined spirit, and the same devastating connection to his family's darkest secrets. Tonight, he would discover that some coincidences were actually carefully planned revenge. Alexander's investigation led him back to the Sterling garage at 11 p.m., when the building stood empty except for security lights casting long shadows across rows of luxury vehicles. He'd spent hours researching the mystery mechanic, following paper trails and employee records that led nowhere. Whoever she was, she'd covered her tracks with professional precision. But Alexander Sterling hadn't built a business empire by accepting defeat easily. The sound of tools clinking against metal drew him deeper into the garage. There, beneath a midnight blue Lamborghini, lay a pair of legs in that distinctive emerald jumpsuit Jenkins had described. The mechanic worked with fluid grace, her movements precise and confident as she adjusted something in the engine compartment. Alexander's heart stopped. Those legs belonged to Zara, the generous woman from the bus. The stranger who'd given him her last few dollars with a smile that had haunted his dreams for days was the same mysterious genius who'd been servicing Sterling's most demanding customers. "You're incredibly talented," he said, stepping closer. The clinking stopped. A moment of absolute silence stretched between them before Zara rolled out from under the car, her face a mask of shock that quickly transformed into something far more dangerous. Alexander Sterling. Her voice carried venom that could have dissolved steel. "I wondered when you'd show up." The casual warmth from their bus encounter had vanished, replaced by cold fury that made Alexander's blood freeze. This wasn't surprise, this was recognition. She'd known exactly who he was. "Zara, I don't understand." "Of course you don't." She stood, wiping her hands on a rag with deliberate slowness. "Sterling men never understand the damage they cause." "Damage? What are you talking about?" Her laugh could have cut glass. 3 years, Alexander. 3 years I've been working in your family's garage, fixing cars for the same people who watched your mother destroy my life. Do you know what that feels like? Alexander's confusion deepened. "My mother? I've never met you before the bus." "Haven't you?" Zara stepped closer, her eyes blazing with fury. "Think harder. Search that privileged memory of yours. A teenage girl, maybe 16, married to your older brother Marcus. Ring any bells?" The garage seemed to tilt around Alexander. Marcus had been married? Impossible. He would have known about something that significant. "Marcus was never married," he said weakly. 8 months, Zara continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. "We were married for 8 months before your family decided I wasn't good enough for Sterling blood. Before your mother's lawyers painted me as a gold digger and stripped away everything I'd worked for. That's impossible. I would have known. You were in Switzerland, finishing your final year at that exclusive boarding school. Convenient timing, wouldn't you say? Keep the golden boy away while the family handles their dirty business." Alexander's mind raced, trying to process information that felt too devastating to be real. "You're lying." "Am I?" Zara pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos until she found what she wanted. "Here's your proof." The image showed a younger Zara in a simple white dress, standing beside Marcus in what was clearly a wedding photo. She looked radiant, hopeful, completely different from the hardened woman facing him now. "You really don't remember me, do you?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I attended 3 family dinners before your mother decided I was a threat. You shook my hand once, told me I seemed nice enough for Marcus." The memory hit Alexander like a physical blow. A shy teenager with bright eyes and nervous energy, clearly in love with his brother. He'd barely paid attention, dismissing her as another of Marcus's temporary fascinations. "Zara, if this is true," she stepped closer, her presence commanding despite her small stature. "You want to know what's true? Your family destroyed a 16-year-old girl's life because she wasn't born into the right social class. They took away my MIT scholarship, my marriage, my future. They left me with nothing but a restraining order and a 3-year plan for revenge." Alexander felt the world shifting beneath his feet. What kind of revenge? Zara's smile was sharp as broken glass. The kind that takes everything you love and makes you watch it burn. The revelation that followed nearly brought Alexander to his knees. "Harmony isn't just my daughter," Zara said, her voice steady despite the earthquake she was creating. "She's Marcus's daughter, your niece. The Sterling family has a 3-year-old granddaughter they've never acknowledged." Alexander gripped the workbench behind him, his legs threatening to collapse. "That's impossible. Marcus would have told me. Would he?" Zara's eyes held depths of pain that made Alexander's chest ache. "When did Marcus ever tell you anything important? When did any of your family ever tell you the truth?" The garage walls seemed to close in around them. Alexander thought of his brother. Charming, successful Marcus who'd married a socialite named Catherine 2 years ago. Marcus who'd never mentioned a previous marriage, a daughter, a life destroyed by their mother's machinations. "Tell me everything," Alexander whispered. Zara's story unfolded like a nightmare disguised as a fairy tale. She'd been a genius, accepted to MIT at 15 with a full scholarship in mechanical engineering. Marcus had found her working part-time at a local garage, fascinated by her ability to diagnose engine problems others couldn't solve. He'd pursued her with the full force of sterling charm, promising her a future where she could have both love and education. He was 28, I was 16, Zara continued. I thought I was mature enough to handle an older man's attention. I thought love conquered everything. They'd eloped to Vegas, keeping the marriage secret until Marcus was ready to face his family. For 8 months, they'd lived in a small apartment while Zara commuted to MIT and Marcus worked at Sterling Automotive, both of them planning to reveal their marriage after the first semester. Then I got pregnant, Zara said, her voice breaking slightly. Marcus was thrilled. He said it was time to tell his family, time to start our real life together. Alexander could already see the disaster approaching. Victoria Sterling had reacted to the news with cold fury. Her son married to a teenage scholarship student. Her grandchild would be half working class. Unacceptable. She'd activated the family's legal team with surgical precision. They painted me as a gold digger who trapped Marcus with a pregnancy. Zara continued. Your mother's lawyers found every angle to attack. My age, my background, my family's financial struggles. They claimed I was mentally unstable, unsuitable for mine. The divorce proceedings had been won. Victoria Sterling's team had destroyed Zara's character, questioned her fitness as a mother, and made her out to be a calculated opportunist. MIT had withdrawn her scholarship after an anonymous tip suggested she was using the school's resources illegally. Marcus folded completely, Zara said, her voice flat with old pain. The moment your mother applied pressure, he signed whatever paper she put in front of him. He didn't fight for me, didn't fight for his daughter, didn't even show up to the final hearing. Alexander felt sick. What did you get in the settlement? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The prenup your mother had forced me to sign gave me no claim to Sterling money. I got a restraining order keeping me away from all Sterling properties, including the garage where I'd been working. I was 19, pregnant, homeless, and legally forbidden from contacting the father of my child. And Marcus just let this happen? He married Catherine Whitmore 6 months later. Perfect socialite from the right family with the right connections. They had a big wedding. I saw the photos in the society pages. Your mother got her dream daughter-in-law. Alexander stared at the woman before him. Brilliant, strong, destroyed by his family's cruelty. Zara, I had no idea. Of course you didn't. You were protected from the ugly reality of how sterling wealth gets maintained. You got to keep your hands clean while your mother did the dirty work. What do you want from me? Zara's smile was cold as winter moonlight. I want you to understand that everything you're about to lose, I lost first. Your family took my education, my marriage, my future. Now I'm taking theirs. You can't destroy an entire company because of what happened to you. Watch me. Alexander realized he was staring at someone who'd spent 3 years planning the Sterling Empire's destruction. Someone who'd positioned herself perfectly to strike at the heart of everything his family had built. Someone who'd just revealed that their chance encounter on the bus had been anything but random. Alexander burst into his mother's office the next morning like a man possessed by demons. Victoria Sterling sat behind her mahogany desk, reviewing contracts with the same ice-cold efficiency she'd used to destroy a teenage girl's life. She looked up as her son entered, her expression shifting from mild annoyance to sharp attention when she saw his face. Alexander, you look terrible. Are you ill? Tell me about Zara Johnson. Victoria's perfectly manicured fingers stilled on the papers. For just a moment, something flickered across her features. Surprise, calculation, perhaps even fear. I don't know what you mean. Marcus's wife, your daughter-in-law, the mother of your granddaughter. Victoria Sterling had built her empire on maintaining perfect control, but Alexander watched cracks appear in her facade. She set down her pen with deliberate precision, buying time to formulate her response. I see you've been speaking with someone you shouldn't have. You destroyed her. Alexander's voice shook with rage he'd never felt before. She was 16 years old, pregnant, and you crushed her like she was nothing. I protected this family. Victoria's voice turned sharp as a blade. That girl was a threat to everything we've built. She would have dragged the Sterling name through the mud. She was brilliant. She was going to MIT. She was working-class trash who got lucky with a scholarship. Do you think those people disappear once they get what they want? Her entire family would have come crawling out of the woodwork, expecting handouts, expecting to be part of our world. Alexander stared at his mother with growing horror. She was 19 when you threw her out, pregnant and homeless. She survived, didn't she? Victoria's tone suggested this was proof of her mercy. The girl was resourceful. I'll give her that. She's been working in our garage for months. Did you know? Victoria's smile was thin as paper. Of course I knew. I've been watching her since she started showing up on security cameras. Clever little thing, using false identities, working only at night. I was curious to see what she was planning. You've been watching her? The girl spent 3 years preparing for something. Did you think I wouldn't notice? Every move she's made, every position she's taken, every skill she's developed, it's all been leading to this moment. Alexander felt the ground shifting beneath his feet again. What moment? The moment she revealed herself to you, obviously. The moment she began her final play. Victoria stood, moving to the window that overlooked the city. She's been documenting everything, Alexander. Every questionable business practice, every legal gray area, every shortcut we've taken to maintain our competitive edge. She's built a case against Sterling Industries that could destroy us. How do you know this? Because I would have done the same thing in her position. The girl is smarter than I gave her credit for. Alexander's mind raced. If you knew what she was planning, why didn't you stop her? Victoria turned back to face him, her eyes cold as Arctic ice. Because I wanted to see how far she'd go. I wanted to understand the full scope of her threat before I neutralized it. Neutralized? She's about to discover that some enemies are too dangerous to leave alive. The Sterling family didn't build this empire by showing mercy to those who threaten us. Alexander felt his world collapsing. You can't hurt her. I can do whatever is necessary to protect this family. The question is, are you going to help me, or are you going to stand in my way? The choice his mother offered would determine not just Zara's fate, but the kind of man Alexander would become. What Alexander discovered in the following days made him question everything he thought he knew about justice, revenge, and the woman who'd shown him kindness on a city bus. Zara Johnson hadn't just been working at Sterling Automotive for 3 years. She'd been preparing for war. Her modest apartment told the real story. Behind the carefully maintained facade of a struggling single mother, Alexander found evidence of a master strategist who'd spent every waking moment planning the Sterling Empire's downfall. Financial records spread across her kitchen table showed 3 years of meticulous documentation. Every illegal business practice, every bribe, every corner cut to maximize profits. Zara had proof of everything. Bank statements revealed she'd been living on almost nothing, saving every penny for legal fees and private investigators. You've been investigating my family since the divorce, Alexander said, staring at the wall covered in photographs, documents, and connection charts that looked like something from federal investigation. I've been documenting your family's crimes, Zara corrected, not looking up from the laptop where she was typing. There's a difference. This is obsession. This is justice. Alexander picked up a folder labeled Sterling Industries, Labor Violations. Inside were photographs of overseas manufacturing facilities, testimony from workers who'd been injured due to safety violations, and medical records showing chemical exposure that Sterling had covered up. You realize what this information could do to us? That's the point. Zara finally looked at him, her eyes blazing with 3 years of accumulated fury. Your family destroyed my life for sport. Now I'm returning the favor. What about the bus? Our meeting? Was any of that real? Zara's laugh was bitter as burned coffee. You think I randomly chose Route 47? You think I coincidentally carried exact change for bus fare? Alexander, I've been tracking your fake identity for weeks. I knew exactly when and where you'd be. The revelation hit him like a physical blow. You planned the whole thing, every second of it. The sweet, struggling single mother who helped the lost college student? Pure performance. I needed to see what kind of man you really were beneath all that sterling privilege. And what did you decide? That you're exactly like the rest of your family, selfish, entitled, and completely blind to the damage you cause. Alexander felt something breaking inside his chest. The kindness you showed me was bait. I needed you to trust me, to see me as harmless. It worked perfectly. You made me care about you. I made you care about a lie. Zara closed her laptop and faced him fully. The real question is, what are you going to do now that you know the truth? Are you going to run back to your mother and warn her what's coming? Or are you going to sit there and let me destroy everything you've ever known? Alexander stared at the evidence surrounding him. Proof of his family's corruption, documentation of their crimes, and the brilliant woman who'd spent 3 years preparing to burn down everything he'd inherited. What if I wanted to help you? Zara's smile was sharp as broken glass. Then you'd better prove you're nothing like the rest of your family. Because in 48 hours, I'm going public with everything I've found. 48 hours? The annual shareholders meeting. Your family's most important day of the year becomes the day they lose everything. Alexander realized he was falling in love with the one person who could destroy his entire world, and she was giving him 2 days to decide which side of the war he wanted to fight on. The next 48 hours would determine whether Alexander Sterling was his family's son or his own man. Zara's ultimatum burned in his mind as he walked through Sterling Industries headquarters, seeing everything through new eyes. The marble floors had been paid for with blood money. The expensive artwork had been purchased with profits from illegal labor practices. The entire empire was built on a foundation of cruelty and corruption. But it was also his inheritance, his birthright, his only identity for 24 years. Alexander found himself in the company's legal department, accessing files that should have been restricted. His security clearance opened doors that revealed the true scope of Sterling's crimes. Environmental violations that had poisoned entire communities. Labor practices that had killed workers in overseas facilities. Financial manipulations that had destroyed smaller companies and eliminated thousands of jobs. Every page confirmed Zara's accusations. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. "Family dinner tonight. We need to discuss your recent activities." Alexander stared at the message, knowing that Victoria Sterling didn't issue casual invitations. She discovered his investigation. The confrontation he'd been dreading was about to begin. But first, he had a more important meeting. Zara's apartment felt different when he arrived that evening. The war room atmosphere had softened slightly. Toys scattered across the floor, children's drawings on the refrigerator, the warm smell of dinner cooking. For the first time, Alexander saw the life she'd built from nothing. "Uncle Alex," a small voice called from the kitchen. Alexander's heart stopped. A little girl with Marcus's eyes and Zara's smile ran toward him, throwing her arms around his legs with the trusting affection only children possessed. "Harmony," Zara said softly. "This is Alexander. He's an old friend. Are you staying for dinner?" Harmony asked, her 3-year-old voice bright with hope. Alexander knelt to her level, studying features that were unmistakably Sterling. His niece, Marcus's daughter, the granddaughter Victoria Sterling, had never acknowledged. "I'd like that very much," he said, his voice rough with emotion. Dinner was a revelation. Zara had created a home filled with love, laughter, and genuine warmth. Everything Alexander's childhood lacked. Harmony chattered about her day at daycare, showed off her latest drawings, and treated Alexander like he'd always been part of her life. "She's incredible," Alexander said later, after Harmony had fallen asleep on the couch between them. "She's everything I'm fighting for," Zara replied. "She deserves to know her father's family isn't ashamed of her existence." "Marcus doesn't know about any of this, does he? Your brother made his choice 3 years ago. He chose the Sterling name over his daughter." Alexander watched Harmony sleep, her small hand curled around a stuffed elephant. "What happens to her when you destroy my family?" "She gets justice. She gets acknowledgement. She gets a chance at the life your mother stole from her." was about proving himself to the man he wanted to become. Marcus Sterling burst through the executive conference room doors like a man possessed, his perfectly styled hair disheveled, his designer suit wrinkled from the emergency flight from London. Alexander had been expecting this confrontation since the moment he'd kissed Zara in the garage. His older brother's rage filled the mahogany-paneled room like toxic smoke. "Have you lost your mind?" Marcus slammed his briefcase onto the conference table. "Working with that woman? After everything she put this family through, everything she put us through?" Alexander stood slowly, his voice deadly calm. "She was 16 when you married her, Marcus. 16 and brilliant and pregnant with your child. She was a gold digger. She was a scholarship student headed to MIT. Alexander's words cut through his brother's excuses like surgical blades. "She loved you. She loved this family. And mother destroyed her because she didn't come from the right bloodline." Victoria Sterling entered the room with the predatory grace of a shark sensing blood in the water. Her silver hair gleamed under the conference room lights, her ice blue eyes calculating every angle of attack. "Sit down, both of you." Her voice could freeze summer rain. "We have a crisis to manage." She activated the wall-mounted screen, revealing photographs that made Alexander's stomach turn. Images of him and Zara working together in the garage. Screenshots of their evidence files. Financial records they'd compiled documenting Sterling's illegal business practices. "Your little girlfriend has been busy," Victoria continued. "Industrial espionage, theft of proprietary information, violation of her restraining order. I could have her arrested within the hour." "On what grounds?" Alexander demanded. "Everything we found came from public records and willing witnesses." Public records accessed through fraud. Witnesses who signed confidentiality agreements. Evidence obtained under false pretenses. Victoria's smile was arctic. "I've built empires on less substantial foundations." Marcus paced like a caged animal. "Do you understand what she could do to us?" The Henderson acquisition alone involves questionable labor practices in 3 countries. If that information goes public, thousands of jobs were eliminated illegally, Alexander interrupted. Environmental regulations were bypassed. Safety standards were ignored. She's documenting crimes, not committing them. "Those are business necessities," Victoria snapped. "Profit margins require difficult decisions. Shareholders expect results. Shareholders don't expect criminal liability." The conference door opened again. Alexander's heart stopped as 2 security guards entered, followed by Detective Morrison from the Corporate Crimes Division. Behind them, in handcuffs, walked Zara. Her emerald dress was torn at the shoulder. Her usually perfect hair hung loose around her face, but her eyes blazed with defiant fire that made Alexander's chest ache with pride and terror. "Zara Johnson," Detective Morrison announced, "you're under arrest for industrial espionage, computer fraud, and violation of a restraining order." "The evidence she stole," Victoria began. "The evidence I gathered legally," Zara interrupted, her voice carrying enough authority to silence the room. "Every document obtained through Freedom of Information requests. Every witness statement given voluntarily. Every financial record pulled from public filings." Alexander moved toward her, but the security guards blocked his path. "The restraining order prohibits you from Sterling Properties," Detective Morrison continued. "Yet surveillance footage shows you working in Sterling facilities for months, under contract with independent clients who brought their vehicles for service. I never accessed Sterling systems or Sterling information during those visits." Victoria's laugh was sharp as breaking glass. "Clever girl, but not clever enough." She nodded to one of the security guards, who produced a tablet showing additional footage. Alexander watched in horror as the screen displayed Zara photographing documents in the executive office suite. "Those files were planted," Zara said quietly, but her voice carried less certainty now. "Prove it," Victoria replied, from a jail cell. As the officers led Zara away, she caught Alexander's eyes across the room. Her expression held no accusation, no plea for rescue. Instead, she looked at him with something that shattered his heart completely: understanding. She knew he would have to choose between saving her and protecting his family's empire. She knew which choice his blood would demand. She knew, and she forgave him in advance for the betrayal that was coming. The conference room door closed behind her with the finality of a coffin lid. The Sterling Automotive Annual Shareholders Meeting had never hosted a revolution before. Alexander stood outside the grand ballroom of the Waldorf Astoria, his hands trembling as he clutched the manila folder containing 3 years of documented evidence. Inside, 400 of the world's wealthiest investors waited to hear Victoria Sterling's presentation on record-breaking profits and future expansion plans. They had no idea they were about to witness the systematic destruction of a corporate empire. Zara had been released on bail 12 hours earlier, thanks to a legal team that had materialized from nowhere, brilliant attorneys who specialized in whistleblower protection and corporate crime prosecution. Alexander suspected she'd been planning this backup strategy for months. The ballroom buzzed with the energy of serious money. Men in hand-tailored suits discussed market projections, while women in designer gowns evaluated investment opportunities. Everyone held champagne flutes and profit expectations. Victoria Sterling commanded the stage like a general addressing her troops, her silver hair gleaming under crystal chandeliers, her smile radiating the confidence of someone who had never lost a battle. Sterling Automotive Industries achieved unprecedented growth this fiscal year, she announced. Revenue increased 47% through strategic acquisitions and operational efficiency improvements. Polite applause rippled through the audience. Alexander moved toward the front of the room, his folder feeling heavier with each step. Our automotive service division exceeded all performance metrics, particularly through the innovative work of our specialized mechanics, who have generated exceptional customer satisfaction ratings. Alexander reached the microphone designated for shareholder questions. His mother's eyes found his across the crowded room, and her triumphant expression faltered slightly. The Henderson Manufacturing acquisition represents our crown jewel achievement, Victoria continued, her voice gaining strength. This strategic purchase eliminated redundant competition while optimizing production costs through international labor partnerships. Mrs. Sterling, Alexander said, his voice carrying clearly through the ballroom sound system. The room fell silent. Could you explain to our shareholders exactly what optimizing production costs means in practical terms? Victoria's smile could have frozen champagne. Perhaps you'd like to discuss operational details privately, Alexander. I think our investors deserve transparency about how their profits are generated. Alexander opened his folder, removing photographs that made his stomach turn. These images show the Henderson factory conditions in Guatemala. 12-hour workdays for children as young as 14. No safety equipment, no ventilation systems, no emergency exits. Murmurs swept through the audience like wildfire. Several shareholders moved closer to examine the evidence. Those allegations are completely unfounded, Victoria snapped. Security, please escort my son from the premises. These financial records show Sterling saved $8 million annually by relocating Henderson operations to a facility that violates international labor laws. Alexander's voice grew stronger with each revelation. We've been using child labor to manufacture components for luxury vehicles sold to American consumers. The murmurs became angry conversations. Shareholders began demanding explanations. Marcus Sterling appeared at Alexander's shoulder, his face pale with panic. Stop this. You're destroying everything our family built. Everything our family built was constructed on other people's suffering. Alexander held up additional documents. Environmental impact reports that were falsified, safety inspections that were bribed, worker compensation claims that were denied through legal intimidation. The ballroom erupted into chaos. Shareholders shouted questions at Victoria, who stood frozen behind the podium like a deer caught in headlights. Her perfect composure cracked, revealing the calculating predator beneath the polished exterior. And this, Alexander said, producing the final piece of evidence, is documentation showing how Sterling systematically destroys smaller competitors through illegal business practices, including the targeted harassment of former family members who threaten corporate interests. He looked directly at his mother. 3 years ago, you destroyed an innocent young woman's life because she married into this family without your approval. You stole her education, her future, and her dreams. You separated her from her daughter's father. You used our legal team to crush someone whose only crime was loving the wrong Sterling. The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria Sterling, who had commanded boardrooms and bent politicians to her will, stood speechless as her empire crumbled around her. Marcus grabbed Alexander's arm. "You've destroyed us all." "No," Alexander replied, watching as federal investigators entered the ballroom through multiple doors. "I've finally set us free." The shareholders' revolution was complete. The Sterling Empire had fallen not to external enemies, but to the conscience of its own heir. Zara Johnson watched from the back of the room, tears streaming down her face, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming relief of justice finally served. 6 months after the Sterling Empire collapsed, Alexander woke up in a studio apartment that could fit inside his former walk-in closet. The morning sunlight streamed through windows that actually opened, a luxury he'd never appreciated in climate-controlled penthouses. His bed was a mattress on the floor. His closet contained 3 pairs of jeans, several t-shirts, and 1 suit for job interviews. His bank account held enough money to survive for another month if he was careful. He had never been happier. The federal investigation had moved with surprising speed once Alexander's evidence opened the floodgates. Victoria Sterling faced charges in 4 countries. Marcus Sterling had fled to Switzerland, leaving behind a wife who'd filed for divorce and custody of children who barely knew their father. The Sterling automotive empire had been dismantled, sold in pieces to competitors who promised to honor worker rights and environmental regulations. Alexander himself faced no criminal charges. His cooperation with investigators had earned him immunity. But legal protection couldn't restore his family relationships or his former lifestyle. He didn't want either back. His phone buzzed with a text message that made him smile despite everything. Harmony drew you a picture. She wants to know when Uncle Alex is coming to dinner. Uncle Alex. The title meant more to him than Sterling heir ever had. Zara had disappeared for 3 weeks after the shareholders meeting, taking Harmony to visit relatives in Detroit while the media frenzy consumed New York. When she returned, she'd started a legitimate automotive repair business with settlement money from Sterling's bankruptcy proceedings. Johnson Automotive occupied a converted warehouse in Queens, far from Manhattan's corporate towers. The garage employed 12 mechanics, including several former Sterling workers who lost their jobs during the company's collapse. Zara paid fair wages, offered health insurance, and maintained the highest safety standards in the industry. She'd also hired Alexander as her lowest paid apprentice. Learning to work with his hands had been humbling and exhilarating. His first oil change had taken 3 hours and resulted in a minor flood. His second week, he'd accidentally broken a customer's side mirror. By month 4, he could handle basic maintenance without supervision. More importantly, he was learning what honest work felt like. "You're getting better," Zara had told him the previous Friday, watching him successfully replace brake pads without destroying anything. Almost competent, their relationship remained complicated. 3 years of pain couldn't disappear overnight, even with justice served and apologies offered. But Alexander saw hope in small moments. Shared coffee breaks, Harmony's innocent questions about family, quiet conversations about dreams they'd both thought were lost forever. Marcus had attempted contact twice, both times demanding Alexander use his influence with prosecutors to reduce the charges against their mother. Alexander had declined both conversations before they lasted 30 seconds. Some bridges, once burned, weren't meant to be rebuilt. Others, damaged by time and circumstance, could be repaired with patience and genuine effort. Alexander locked his apartment and walked toward the subway station, joining the flow of ordinary people heading to ordinary jobs. His reflection in the subway car window showed a man who looked remarkably like the billionaire heir who'd stepped onto a city bus 8 months earlier. But everything essential had changed. He was no longer Alexander Sterling, corporate prince and future empire ruler. He was Alex Cooper, apprentice mechanic and work in progress. And for the first time in his life, that felt like enough. The job interview lasted exactly 7 minutes, which Alexander suspected might be a record for employment rejections. Zara sat behind her desk in the Johnson Automotive office, her hair pulled back in a professional bun, her green jumpsuit replaced by business attire that somehow made her even more beautiful. Harmony played quietly in the corner, building elaborate structures with colorful blocks. "So," Zara said, reviewing Alexander's handwritten application with obvious amusement, "Alex Cooper seeks employment as an entry-level mechanic. Previous experience, 8 months of apprentice work. References, limited. Special skills, enthusiasm and willingness to learn. I also make excellent coffee," Alexander added. "And I've only flooded the garage twice this year. Impressive improvement rate." Zara's lips twitched with suppressed laughter. "What makes you think Johnson Automotive needs another inexperienced mechanic?" "Because you're expanding the business, adding 2 more service bays, and I heard Jimmy mention he's considering retirement next year. You've been paying attention." "I've been hoping." Harmony looked up from her blocks. "Mama, is Uncle Alex going to work here forever now?" The question hung in the air between them, loaded with possibilities that made Alexander's chest tight with longing. "That depends on whether Uncle Alex is serious about staying," Zara replied, her eyes never leaving Alexander's face. "This job doesn't come with trust funds or safety nets. The pay is modest. The hours are long. Some days you'll go home covered in grease and exhausted." "Sounds perfect." The position also comes with expectations. Zara's tone grew serious. Complete honesty. No more fake identities or hidden agendas. No more playing roles to get what you want. Alexander leaned forward, matching her intensity. "I'm done pretending to be someone I'm not. The person I was before, that was the performance. This is who I really am. A billionaire son working for minimum wage in Queens. A man trying to earn a chance at the life he actually wants." Harmony abandoned her blocks and climbed onto Alexander's lap with the easy trust that children reserve for people they considered family. Her small arms wrapped around his neck, and she whispered conspiratorially, "I think you should get the job. Your daughter makes compelling arguments," Alexander told Zara. "She has excellent judgment about character." Unlike her mother, Zara's expression softened slightly. Her mother is learning that some people can change, given enough time and motivation. "What would it take to convince you I'm serious about both the job and the life that comes with it?" "Time. Consistency. Proof that this isn't another phase you'll outgrow when reality gets uncomfortable." Alexander shifted Harmony to his other knee, meeting Zara's challenging gaze directly. "I've spent 8 months learning that comfortable was killing me. I'd rather struggle towards something real than coast through something meaningless. Even if real means sharing a 1-bedroom apartment, shopping at discount stores, and worrying about monthly expenses. Especially then." Zara studied his face for long moments, searching for traces of the privileged heir who'd stepped onto that bus nearly a year ago. Alexander let her look, confident she'd find only the man he'd chosen to become. "The position pays $15 an hour," she said finally. "No benefits for the first 90 days. You'll start with basic maintenance and work your way up based on performance." "When do I start?" "You started 8 months ago. This conversation is about making it official." Zara extended her hand across the desk. Alexander shook it, feeling like he was signing a contract more important than any Sterling acquisition. "Welcome to Johnson Automotive, Alex Cooper." Harmony clapped her hands in delight. "Now we're all a real family." Neither Alexander nor Zara corrected her assumption. Some truths were too precious to analyze. 1 year later, Alexander's alarm clock buzzed at 6 a.m. in the apartment he now shared with Zara and Harmony. Not as lovers recovering from trauma, but as chosen family building something unprecedented. The morning routine had become sacred. Alexander made coffee, while Zara prepared Harmony's lunch. Harmony insisted on helping by arranging everyone's work clothes and announcing the day's weather forecast with 4-year-old authority. "It's sunny with chances of getting dirty," she declared, handing Alexander his Johnson automotive jumpsuit. "Perfect for fixing cars." The transformation of their living space reflected the transformation of their lives. Harmony's artwork covered the refrigerator. Alexander's automotive textbooks shared shelf space with Zara's engineering journals. Photos from Harmony's dance recitals sat beside pictures of successful car repairs and satisfied customers. Johnson Automotive had grown into one of Queens' most respected repair shops. Word-of-mouth recommendations brought steady business from customers who appreciated honest pricing and exceptional work. The garage employed 18 people now, including Marcus's former assistant, who'd been blacklisted from corporate positions after the Sterling scandal. "Second chances," Zara had explained when Alexander questioned hiring someone with Sterling connections. "Everyone deserves them if they're willing to do the work." Alexander had done the work. 8 months of proving himself as an apprentice had led to his promotion to junior mechanic. 6 months of junior mechanic work had earned him senior status. His natural intelligence, combined with genuine humility and relentless effort, had made him valuable in ways money never could. More importantly, he learned to find satisfaction in problems solved and customers helped rather than profits maximized and competitors destroyed. Morning staff meeting, Zara announced as they arrived at the garage. "We need to discuss the Patterson account and schedule repairs for the vintage car show." The team gathered around workbenches that had become conference tables, coffee cups, and automotive parts sharing space in comfortable chaos. Alexander listened to discussions about part orders, customer concerns, and workflow optimization with the engagement he'd never felt during Sterling board meetings. These conversations mattered because they affected real people doing honest work. "Cooper," Zara said, using the surname that had become his identity, "you're handling the Patterson restoration. Think you're ready for a complete engine rebuild?" "With supervision from the boss," Alexander replied, earning laughter from colleagues who'd watched him evolve from liability to asset. The morning dissolved into productive work. Alexander lost himself in the meditation of mechanical precision, finding peace in a logical progression of diagnosis, disassembly, repair, and reassembly. Each problem had a solution. Each solution required patience, skill, and attention to detail. Everything Sterling Automotive had never valued. Lunch break brought harmony to the garage, a daily tradition that brightened everyone's afternoon. She moved between workstations like a tiny supervisor, offering encouragement and asking questions that kept the mechanics entertained. "Uncle Alex," she said, climbing onto his workbench, "are you going to marry Mama?" The garage fell silent. Alexander felt heat creep up his neck as 18 pairs of eyes focused on him with obvious amusement. "That's a question for your mama," he managed. "I asked her already. She said to ask you." Zara emerged from under the hood of a Honda Civic, her face carefully neutral, but her eyes dancing with mischief. "Well," she said, "Harmony's waiting for an answer." Alexander looked around the garage, at the business they'd built together, the team they'd assembled, the life they'd created from the ashes of his family's empire. He thought about morning coffee and bedtime stories, shared responsibilities and quiet conversations, the slow healing of wounds that had once seemed permanent. "I think," he said carefully, "that some questions are too important for lunch break discussions, but not too important to ask eventually." Zara's voice carried hope wrapped in caution. "Definitely not too important to ask eventually." Harmony clapped her hands. "That means yes in grown-up language." Alexander laughed, pulling both his girls into a hug that smelled like motor oil and possibility. The Sterling Empire had built its fortune on crushing dreams. Johnson Automotive had built its success on making them come true. One honest repair, one second chance, one chosen family at a time. Some foundations, once destroyed, created space for something better to grow.